So in this video, we'll take a closer look at the Samsung Galaxy S23. This is the small version, and we'll compare it to the S22, run the speed test, benchmarking tools, and probably also compare a little bit to the S23 Ultra. And I'm not really sure it is a worthy upgrade coming from the S22, but since I have the S23 Ultra, I've just gotten so used to that smooth UI and animations and so on. When I use the S22, it just feels so choppy and laggy. It's not really aged all that well. Still is a pretty good phone, and I do have the Exynos version because I live in Europe, because I use both of these phones, switch between the two. I just noticed the big difference there in the S22. And right now you can get the S23, 256GB of storage, heavily discounted, so it actually doesn't cost much more than the S22, or at least what I paid for the S22. I did get it on sale a few months after it was released. Upgrading to the S23 will only cost me around $100-ish or so, and I can still get pretty much the same for the S22 that I paid for it, because I got it so cheaply. So I won't really lose anything other than, of course, having to pay a little bit extra to get the latest and greatest. So I have the black model, comes in this nice little box here, black box all the way around. Samsung Galaxy S23 branding here on the side, and Samsung on the other side. You do have all your EMI numbers, serial numbers, and so on the bottom here. And on the back side of the case, we do have those pull tabs. So let's just get straight into it. You can see there's a little arrow here, so let's just pull in that direction and take a closer look at what we get inside the box, set it up, and run some benchmarks after that. So very easy to get into this box, and inside the lid you'll actually find all the instructions and cables and so on in here. So make sure, of course, you check there before you conclude that that's not included, because it is a hidden away a little bit there in the lid. But what you get inside here is, of course, the SIM eject tool, because we still need a tool to use a physical SIM. You get a few quick start instructions or quick start guide to get this up and running. I guess it will just tell you how to plug in your SIM and so on in various different languages. So you can have two physical SIMs and also an embedded SIM and an eSIM, but you cannot have two eSIMs active at the same time. You can have two eSIMs on the phone, but only one active at the same time. So that's a little unfortunate. iPhones have had like dual eSIMs for quite some time now. I was kind of hoping the S23 series also would have that, but unfortunately not. You can still use one physical SIM and one eSIM, or two physical SIMs at the same time, and of course have dual standby that way. I just rock two phones instead. That works best for me. But yeah, you can see here in many different languages, and we have some warranty information in different languages as well. I live in Scandinavia, so of course this is market dependent, but yeah, this is pretty much what you get, I believe, in Europe. And you also get a USB Type-C charging cable and data cable. I believe this is just USB 2.0, but it is USB Type-C one end and USB Type-C in the other end. And of course, you do not get any chargers inside the box. You have to supply that yourself. You can use up to 25 watt fast charging with this phone here, which in my opinion is plenty fast. You shouldn't really charge your phone to those ridiculous speeds that other manufacturers are claiming, because you'll just ruin your battery pretty quick. In my opinion, always charge the slowest way you can, but yeah, you get a pretty decent cable inside the box, and that's all the accessories you get. Let's get that to one side and have a closer look at the phone. Nicely presented here. You can see I have the all black version. Nice matte black glass. Oh, it just feels so nice. And this generation here, of course, we have the cameras that protrude from the back side, but the camera modules themselves, compared to like the S22, where the whole camera housing was like a separate unit. I kind of like this design, but it's also been a little bit aging. I think it's nice to see the newer design on the newer generation of phones, because if you wear a case like this, you can see the cameras are nicely protruding through the case. I really like this design, very clean aesthetics, and the camera lenses do not go further than the case itself, and you don't accumulate a lot of dust this way, because every time you take it in and out of your pocket, it will kind of just clean the lenses on itself. So like that design here. Of course, just pull out the phone like so, and we do have the EMI number on the bottom there below the Samsung logo, so I'll just cover that. But of course, nice matte black texture. You can also get it in green and various other colors. I just like this black base, and I have the green leather case that I bought for this, like on my S23 Ultra. But anyways, you have that 3 camera system. I believe it's exactly the same hardware as last year, only improved a little bit by software, and of course the faster SoC that's built in, because we have now Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 in all phones all over the world, which is a big upgrade coming from the Exynos version of the S22, and also had the S22 Ultra back in the days, but nice matte black coloring. I really like that aesthetics. Also feels so nice when you touch it. Of course, we have a little flash up here as well, nicely integrated into the frame. Actually, I think it is below the glass, kind of a nice little design there. So it's very well protected there. Looking around the phone, on the bottom side, we of course have one speaker. We have microphone holes, 2 of them on the bottom side. So make sure you don't plug in or use the little SIM eject tool in the wrong hole. You can see the SIM eject tool is all the way over here to the right, or the SIM eject hole. But the little hole here between that and the USB Type-C plug is the microphone. You shouldn't really damage the microphone if you accidentally plug in the little SIM eject tool into that hole, because the microphone is hidden away pretty deep inside the phone. So they have thought about it through its design, but still it is a little bit awkward that there is a hole pretty much the same size as the SIM eject hole, pretty close to each other. USB Type-C charging, of course, and USB, I believe 5 gigabits per second, so USB 3.2 Gen 1, or whatever they're called nowadays. And you can also see here on the screen of the phone, or the screen protector, you kind of remove that there's a little warning that you should not put the SIM eject tool in the wrong hole. So definitely take note. We do have antenna lines on the bottom as well as on the left side here, antenna lines there as well, and plastic all the way around. And on this top side, we do have another microphone hole as well, an antenna line. And on the right side, of course, this is where you have the buttons for volume and on or off the phone, and wake and sleep the phone. More antenna lines there as well. And I believe they are positioned a little bit differently this year. Yeah, they're actually a little bit taller compared to the S22. That's kind of a nice little upgrade, because they were kind of low on the old phone, because it's a very small phone, so you kind of have to put your thumb kind of low there. And then of course on the front, let's just peel it off. Always nicely satisfying. And then we have Gorilla Victus 2, I believe, both on the front and on the back. So it should be a little bit better scratch protected, but still is glass. So of course, protected with a screen protector if that's what you're into. And we do have that nice, completely flat display, which is getting better on the S22 or 23 Ultra, excuse me. There still is some curvature there, but definitely much better than the S22 Ultra. But yeah, still nice and flat screen like the S22. I believe it's exactly the same dimensions as well. Same size screen and same placement of the camera, and same pretty even border all the way around the phone. Really dig that. Do have an upgraded 12 megapixel front-facing camera. That's actually a little bit better than the previous generation. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's just remove all the plastic around the sides here. And now we can kind of enjoy that nice high gloss size. Feels very nice in the hand. Not quite 100% flat. Does have a little bit of a curvature. Oh, I just almost dropped it there. A little bit of a curvature to it, but man, it feels very comfortable. Nice to have that rounded edges there. Digs into your palm, and also to not have a completely flat and sharp feeling like on the iPhones, for instance. I really dig this little design here. Very comfortable phone to use and very comfortable phone to keep in your pocket. And of course, comparing it to like the S23 Ultra, it is much smaller. Still not a super small phone. It's not like iPhone mini territory, but it's definitely a very small and compact phone. I definitely notice a big difference when I keep this in my pocket and I bring this with me. And hopefully this time around, I won't sacrifice too much battery life, because that's one of the nice improvements of the S23 series. Much better battery life and much better performance, like much better performance throughout the whole UI. No lag or any stutters at all on my S23 Ultra. So going to my S22 Ultra, whenever I use that, it just feels so choppy and the screen seems very harsh, because they've done some magic with calibrating the screen on the S23 Ultra. So I hope it will be the same with the S23 regular model here. And this is the 256GB variant, so it does have the faster UFS 4.0 storage. And let's just see if there's any battery on there, and go through the setup process and get everything up to date and run some benchmark after that. I believe the speakers have actually also been improved this time around. Wasn't fantastic in the S22 series. It was okay, but nothing really great or amazing. But anyways, let's just set it up in English, because I know I have a lot of English viewers out there. Let's select US, and you do not have to agree to all of these agreements. You only have to agree to the first one here. The other one is optional. So let's just agree for that. And this is so much easier if you already have a Samsung Galaxy phone, but you can copy everything from one phone to another. So all your apps, contacts, information, Wi-Fi information, and so on, copy that. I don't like to do that when I get a new phone. I like to set it up from start just so I know there's nothing running in the background, sucking up the battery and so on. So for this video here, we'll just skip that. Another great upgrade from the S22 regular model. The S22 Plus and Ultra did have Wi-Fi 6E, but I believe this time around, you can see here, Wi-Fi 6E is working on this phone, so let's just connect to that network. That's so nice, finally to be able to use Wi-Fi 6E on a smaller phone as well. Not that I notice any real difference, but considering I have spent a lot of money getting a 6E router, I definitely would like to take full advantage of that. And now we need to reboot. That's pretty common with Samsung phones. And we should start up in a moment and continue with the setup. So I don't have any SIM inside the phone right now. I do not want to enable a SIM for the moment here, but I do use eSIMs on my phone, just making it much easier to switch between phones. You don't have to remove the cover and so on. Just scan the little QR code. Now you can choose to copy apps and data from your old phone. I do not want to do that. I like to set it up as a new phone. Just give me a little bit peace of mind, but of course it takes a little bit longer to install everything, but also to make sure that I don't install all the apps I have on the old phone, maybe only apps I really use, and also some settings can sometimes potentially drain the battery or not be transferred over correctly, so it can cause some issues. So I just find it easier to set it up from new. So let me just log into my Google account. Now we're logged into Google. So after agreeing to all of the terms, you get to this page, and I kind of like disabling scanning. So it won't scan for like open Wi-Fi. I do not like to connect to any of those if I can choose not to. And I don't want to send diagnostics data to Google. So let's just disable those and click accept. Choose your search engine. I'm pretty satisfied with Google, so that's what I'm going to select. But of course you can go DuckDuckGo if you want to be a little more private on the internet. I'm going to use fingerprints as my login method because that's the most secure. You can also use face recognition, but that uses the camera. Camera is not as secure as something like an Apple iPhone's face unlock. So definitely recommend using fingerprints if you can, but of course you can also use a PIN and password and also the old pattern style. So let's just set a fingerprint up to begin with here, and let's just select a PIN. So if your finger doesn't register correctly, you need to type in a PIN, and from time to time, just for security reasons, you need to type in a PIN as well. And also every time you reboot your phone, you need to type in your PIN. And I always like to click on confirm PIN without tapping OK. So you can just type a number and don't have to press OK afterwards. But of course, your mileage may vary. Maybe you like that little bit extra security that you have to tap OK. So once you have typed in your PIN one time, you have to do it again to make sure you typed in the right PIN. So let's just do that. Then click OK. And you see the little animation, what you need to do to actually use the little sensor. It will kind of move around on the screen, and you need to press it with the finger that you want to register. So let's just try and register my thumb here. You can see it kind of moves a little bit around the screen, not really that much. And keep your finger nice and pressed against the screen, or firmly pressed against the screen. It will help you get better reading. But you need to do this just a few times until, of course, we hit the 100% mark. And I find this fingerprint sensor to be very accurate and decently fast in my opinion. And of course, if you want to use Hey Google, and all of my speakers just came on, and phones and so on, you can of course do that here. I like to have that feature turned on, and I agree to all of the terms for that. Click next here. And the last step, of course, is to set up a Samsung account or log into one if you already have one. Or you can also just skip this part here. I already have a Samsung account, so it's easy to just scan the QR code. So once you actually scan the QR code, this is the screen you see, and you can just log into a Samsung account. You do not have to type in the password and two-step authentication. So this is much easier if you already have a Samsung phone. Recommend this definitely. Just click log in, and now you can see we're all logged into a Samsung account. You do not need to agree to any of the optional agreements here. So I just click on the agree button without clicking on any of the other options, and now I'm logged in. I just leave all the Samsung services turned on. Why not? And I do like to have the dark mode or dark theme enabled on my devices. Better for my eyes. And that's it pretty much. Now you are set up, ready to use your phone. So let's see what kind of software we get right out of the box here. You can see we do get One UI 5.1, of course, Android 13, Google Play as of November 1st, 2022. So that's a little bit older. And Security Pass as of March the 1st, 2023. And I'm recording this as of late April 2023. So this is still pretty recent. And available storage right out of the box. We have used almost 40 gigabytes of storage out of the 256, so 15% is used. And one thing I like to do with Samsung phones is go in here and disable background usage limits, because if you enable this, then all the apps you don't use that frequently will just be kept in a sleep mode. That also means you don't get frequent updates to that specific app, using, of course, in Google Play Store and so on. So if you only use an app from time to time, sometimes when you want to use that app, you need to update it before you can actually use it. So it's a little bit annoying. So I just disabled that, and battery life with newer phones is just so good. So it won't really be a big issue. But of course, if you have an app draining your battery, you should also go in here and just have a look at what app it is. And of course, make sure you do the proper thing to actually get it running a little more efficient on your phone. Let's go into display and have a closer look at the screen timeout. I just set it to 5 minutes. Works for me. I also like having that navigational bars, so you can just swipe up from the bottom here instead of having that classical old style home, back and menu button or multitasking button. That's just what I'm used to, so I can just swipe from the side and go back. And of course for motion smoothness, I have adaptive, so it will kind of adapt between, I believe, 48 and 120 Hz refresh rate like the old model. The new one here, S23, does have higher peak brightness, so that's always nice when you go out into the summer. And we also have the newer enhanced comfort mode. So if you compare it here to like the S22, you can see you do not have the enhanced comfort mode. It actually helps out a lot, making the screen more comfortable to look at. And I definitely noticed the difference between my S23 Ultra and my S22. It is just much harsher on my eyes, so I get more eye strain actually looking at the S22, especially at nighttime. So this enhanced comfort definitely enabled that. Let's just go in and see if we actually have some firmware updates or software updates. I believe there should be an update. Yeah, you can see there's an update. And I believe there's also plenty of updates inside the Google Play Store here. So let me just get everything updated, install some benchmarking applications, and we'll just run some benchmark and compare it a little bit to the S22 and S23 Ultra. So everything is set up, latest and greatest software, and of course installed various benchmarking applications. First off, let's just try the fingerprint sensor. As you can see there, definitely is very fast and reliable. And this is probably one of my most favorite implementation of a fingerprint sensor under the screen. That is a little bit faster if it was built into the power button, but this is definitely pretty fast and reliable in my opinion. First off, let's just take a look at the application that is pre-installed here. Of course, we do have all the Samsung applications. And one strange thing still with Samsung phones is you have two built-in messages applications for your text messaging, like the Samsung one. It's not a default one. The default one is the Google messaging application, but it does have a little bit of Samsung skin on it. But yeah, still is a little bit fragmented. Also, you have the two application stores. So you have Google Play Store, and then you have the Galaxy Store. You do still have Facebook and Spotify pre-installed, as well as Netflix, and also these Microsoft applications. And we also have integration inside the settings to link it up to a Windows computer. So kind of nice if you use Windows like I do. So you can kind of get your text messages and phone calls and copy text between computer and phone very easily if you set up with a Windows device. But yeah, that's of course all that's pre-installed here. All the benchmarking applications here, from Geekbench and down to 3D Mark, is something I have installed. You also do get Samsung Notes and Samsung Free and Samsung Global and Game Launcher pre-installed. That's pretty basic. Camera, I think, is pretty much exactly the same as on the other phones, at least in terms of the UI. Easy to use. You of course have your portrait, photo, video, and you do have the more section as well, where you can get into like the expert RAW, you can get into pro photo and pro video, and also food, night photography, and so on. And you can actually drag one of these down to the bar down below here, so you can kind of move them around. So for instance, if you want night photography to be between photo and portrait, you can do so. So now when you swipe between the different modes here, in the bottom there, you can see night photography is now squeezed in between portrait and photo. And get it back here, you can just drag it back into the setting. Pretty easy to set up the camera exactly the way you would like it. And of course, you do have various settings for both video and photo. Unfortunately, still have no 25 frames per second for video, which is a little bit weird. I kind of like to have this grid line enabled, so I always enable that. So we do have Full HD 30, Ultra HD 30, and we also have 64K as well. And we also have 8K 30, and this time around 8K is actually pretty usable. Still for me, I'll just go for the 4K 30, fine for my use case, but definitely wouldn't have been nice to see European frame rate, so 25 frames per second or 25p. But still not a thing on Samsung phone, unfortunately. And then of course we do have that nice camera with 3 different lenses. So we have the standard camera here, we have the ultra wide, so we get much wider, of course. And we do also have the telephoto camera, so you can get very close. But unfortunately, we do not have macro photography on the ultra-wide. There's no autofocus, so no matter how close you get to the subject, you won't really get in focus. So that's a little bit annoying. It would be nice to actually see macro photography in a small phone, but like I said, it's pretty much exactly the same hardware as the Samsung Galaxy S22 in terms of the camera. So most of the optimization is done in software. So let's just run some benchmarking applications and compare a little bit between the S23 series, between like the old S22 over here on the left. See, I do not have any recent applications, so should be pretty comparable, at least in terms of what's running in the background. So first off, let's just try Geekbench 6 and see what kind of speed we get between them. Of course, we have the same SoC on the two S23, but of course the S23 Ultra does have a bigger body, so it can dissipate the heat a little bit more efficient. I have a case on all the phones, so should be pretty comparable there as well. Let's just run the benchmark and see which one completes the first. And to no surprise, the two S23s finish almost exactly the same time and also very comparable in terms of score there. Let's just wait for the S22 to finish. And finally, the S22 finish there took quite a bit longer, and you can also see it in the score there because, yeah, multi-core score significantly faster on the newer phones. Single-core score is equally also quite a bit faster. So let's just go into the compute benchmark and see which one actually finishes first there. This is just the OpenCL test and see if we can actually hit the button at the same time. And again, the S23s there are just so much faster and finished almost exactly the same time, and actually a little bit higher score there on the regular S23. And finally, the S22 finished, also scoring significantly lower, like 1,000 point lower compared to like the S23 series. Next off, let's just run another benchmark. Let's try the machine learning benchmark and actually just run the TensorFlow Flow Lite and see how well it actually performs between the three here. S23 finished a lot faster again. Let's just wait for the S22. The S22 finally finished at 415, so like 200 scores less than the two S23s. And that's also one of the areas where like the newer CPUs are much faster. Of course, in compute learning or machine learning. So not only graphical performance, CPU performance, but also in all the intelligent stuff under the hood, much faster. And let's just try to run 3D Mark, just to run a graphical intensive test here. And let's just run the extreme test. And again, let's run it at the same time on the two phones there and see what kind of score we actually get. And you can also just see there the load time is just so much faster on the newer ones, because they do have the faster SSDs. I'm not sure if you can actually see this on camera, but man, much choppier experience over here in the S22. Almost like very fluid on the two S23s. And the results are in, and to no surprise, the two new phones here are pretty much close to twice the performance of the old one there. And again, I do have the Exynos version, so a little bit slower than the Snapdragon version from that generation. The score versus all devices on the S22 we're close to like 50% there, but on the two others there we're close to 90%. And when we go to the graph here at the bottom, you can see temperature pretty comparable. The S22 Ultra, or 23 Ultra, excuse me, actually a little bit cooler because this is also a bigger phone, so it can dissipate heat a little bit more efficient, but frame rates actually a little bit higher on the S23 regular model, at least when it comes to the lowest frames per second, but the highest frames per second, 28 frames per second, is about twice the performance of the S22, so definitely a much faster there in graphical performance. And let's just run a speed test. This is just a Wi-Fi speed test, because on the S22 we do have Wi-Fi 6, still pretty fast, but on the S23 regular model this year we do have Wi-Fi 6E, which is significantly faster, and I also have a Wi-Fi 6E router, and this is also the optimal environment. I'm fairly close to the router, and there's not really that many devices connected to 6E as of yet. And I do have a 1 gig connection, so let's just try the S23 first and see what kind of speed we can actually get there. And that is pretty much just saturating my bandwidth, so actually pretty close to the same speed I get on LAN, or actually exactly the same speed on LAN. So I think that's the biggest limiting factor. And you can see there the Wi-Fi 6 is definitely not as comparable in terms of speed. Usually it's much faster than this. Maybe there's some other devices actually sucking down the performance a little bit, because I do have more devices connected to Wi-Fi 6, but you can see the upload speed Also still very, very fast. Let's just run this test one more time and see if this wasn't a fluke. Running the first time here. But yeah, you can see right at the bat there, get it up to like 900 megabits per second. That's insanely fast. I won't say I really noticed the extra speed, but I do notice the lower latency when actually connecting to Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi 6 is just that little bit slower at actually in terms of latency, connecting to the internet and downloading apps and so on. But you can see definitely we are getting very comparable results there. 800 megabits per second is insanely fast on Wi-Fi 6. So yeah, definitely cannot complain there. Either these phones will be plenty fine. Biggest difference actually downloading applications and installing them is the newer UFS 4.0 storage on the S23. It is definitely noticeable how fast it is to actually install applications as well, of course, as downloading them from like this Wi-Fi speeds here. Let's just do a little bit of a sound test here. This is at max volume. And compare a little bit to the S22. Again, full volume. So in terms of sound, definitely the S23 is better. I'm not really sure if you can actually hear it on this video because yeah, recording environment here, I have one microphone, of course we have stereo speakers here and so on and placement, but definitely the S23 does have better range, better low end as well compared to like the S22. It is a little more tinny, definitely pretty good speakers still, but that's also the same with the S23 Ultra. It's just so much better this time around compared to the S22 series. So all in all, I'm not really sure if I would recommend it. If you're coming from the S22 and you are satisfied with that, definitely of course keep that around. I don't think I would actually have upgraded if I did not upgrade first to like the S23 and felt the difference in terms of speed, fluidity of the whole UI, also just speed opening and installing applications and so on. So much more fluid on the S23 series, and the fact that you can actually get the S23 at a pretty good price. I don't think it actually sold as well as the Ultra series, so still you can get it at discount. And I actually got the 256GB variant at the same price, plus an additional discount of around $150. I end up paying, like I said, maybe $100 more than I paid for like the S22, and I can still get like exactly the same price as I paid for my S22. So if you are like considering getting a cheap S22, or maybe for $100 more you can get an S23, I would definitely get the S23. It is so much a better phone, but also you have better speakers, better battery life because more efficient CPU, but also that 200 milliamp hour more battery. I would definitely go with the 256GB variant because you do get a little bit faster storage, or actually quite significantly faster storage, UFS 4.0 speeds. You can only get this with 8GB of memory, but I think that's fine. But I'm not really a heavy user or a power user by any stretch of the imagination. But now to be able to run like the whole UI so fluid, it's just so nice. So yeah, for me, it's definitely worth it. But of course, your mileage may vary. I can highly recommend it, and of course I can share some affiliated link down in the description below if you are interested in this phone. But that's pretty much all I have for this video. I hope to see you again in the future one. Until then, take care.